If a company doesn't understand why HR is there, or if you've got a bad HR person, that company will yo-yo.
What's a bad HR person?
People don't know how to write CVs. Let me put it that way. They'll write duties they did. I'm not looking for duties you've done. I'm looking for...
So they say that for entry-level jobs, what's important is technical skills, and then as you rise up, is they show soft skills.
Yes.
For managers, what are the important? You must have these soft skills.
And I tell staff this. My job as a person who's reporting to somebody is to understand my boss. If I don't understand my boss, I've already failed. The third thing that I think a manager should have, and we haven't said for it more, is as a manager, your actual job is to make sure that you are coaching people. Meaning you're asking questions, but you're not providing answers.
Headhunting. How does someone position themselves to a level where they're looking for you? Talk about networking. Some people think networking is, I go to Eve, or Eve, if you hear anything about marketing, I'm looking for a job, I go to that one if you hear anything. Is that how it works?
I tell people every month, go to your boss and ask them 2 questions.
But then also, if I'm in an interview, how do I come back from a knockout? Like, that's my question that totally knocks me out. I've got no idea.
So I get somebody who is hired to do a job. Then they go and get a master's and they expect an increment. If you're a bad employee, you are going to be bad at your business. It is just a given. Why? There are organizations that are obsessed with every time there's a vacancy, they are going outside. But they're not training the people within to be able to take those jobs. Then the person comes in, and then I should start teaching you the job. I'm quietly quitting.
It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
All right, Happy New Year. Welcome to our first episode of the Growth Podcast for the year 2025. We are very happy that you made it. I hope that you're watching in good health. If you're not, we are wishing that you get better. We are starting the podcast on a high. Our guest for the podcast to open the door for more podcasts is one that we have been trying to get, and finally we found her by the grace of God. I was telling her how it's God that brought her here. Otherwise, we would not be having this conversation. This is one of the people I look up to because of what she's done in her career. Is doing very well for herself in business, and you'll be hearing more from her. She is an author, has authored 2 books. I'm hoping it's 2 because I know 2. There's a secret book elsewhere, I don't know about it, but I know she's done 2 books. She has been around. She predominantly has been in charge of people. And by people, I mean, well, others call it human capital, others call it HR, others these days call it people. Yeah. But that's her field. But she's also ventured into other things. And those are things I do not want to preempt. She will get into it with us. I am proud to announce, or I'm honored to announce that Eve Banda is here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That's so nice to hear.
I had so much but I was just holding back. I was like, no, let me give her a chance to just, let me not undersell it.
Yeah.
Let me give her a chance to sell it the right way. How have you been?
I've been great. I think the 2024 was a great year for me. Hoping 2025 will be greater. So I've been great, blessed.
Okay. What's the problem? Oh, me? I'm too high. Okay.
Oh, because of my height.
I get, okay. This is better?
Yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah, so you okay, look, before I go to my first question, I'm almost forgetting. It's a new year, I know. I've got these cards.
Okay.
This is a tradition we have on the podcast. So pick any 3. There's a question, ask
any
it.
3. And
then answer it. Any 3. It doesn't matter what colors.
Okay.
Any 3.
I hope they're nice questions I'm picking.
They're good ones.
All right, there we go.
They're all good ones.
Am I giving them to you?
No, you read them and then you answer them.
Okay, so do I start? I start?
You can start.
So the first one is, who or what was the one thing that got away? Sure, one thing that got away, I think my parents. I feel like they passing away when I was very young, and I've never really had like a father and my mother in a house. I think that's the one thing that really got away. That I just think. So my mom died when I was 9, and my dad when I was 16. So very young. So when my sisters and my brother are telling me stories, I can't really relate because I really didn't know them, right? So that's the one thing that got away.
Okay, next.
Next, which trip changed your life for the better? My first ever trip to Nigeria, just to go and look and see, when you're in expatriation. So they tell you, come and look and see. And going to Nigeria for the first time, and I was like, wow, this place is a mad place, but I love madness. So that really changed my life for the better. So I can't talk about my career without talking about Nigeria. Tell me about a time when you fought for yourself. Sure, I feel like I've been fighting for myself, but the time that I really fought for myself was when I finished grade 12. I was living at my sister's house, and I finished grade 12 on a Friday. On a Saturday, I came to Lusaka without knowing what I'm going to do. But I just knew that when I get out of Ndola to Lusaka, I'm not coming back. And that's how I came. So I had a sister here. I didn't even know where Silver Rest was. Got on a bus, packed my load, and that was it. So that's when I felt like I really fought for myself, because then I put like, this is Eve against the world. So I just started off, came here, didn't have a job. And then the next week, I went in the showgrounds and I was just going, stand by stand, and I found a job. And that's how.
During the show or?
No, off-season.
Oh, off-season.
Off-season. There were companies that would rent in the show grounds off-season. So I found this company and started off as a secretary in those days. Yeah. It was secretary. I didn't even know how to type. I didn't even know the computer. I don't even know what I was doing for. And the guy was very kind to me. When I went to university, those guys actually bought my first fridge, my first TV, and all that stuff. They really took care of me. His name was Bob Lowe. He even became a chief at one point. Bob was like my first mentor. Taught me how to type. Taught me how to use a computer, taught me how to write. So that's the time I fought for myself.
So you worked there, then you went to do your...
So I worked there. You remember when we were finishing, I don't know how they do school now, these kids of nowadays. So when you finished grade 12, you had to wait a year before university call out before you know you're going to the university or not. So that year I had to, because remember I've packed everything. I probably said a few things when I was packing. Like, hey, shake seko, shaka boere. And so I had to find a job. I didn't care whether it was cleaning, whether it was what, I had to find a job. So I came here, stayed with my sister, and my sister was like, well, try the showgrounds. And that's how I found my first job.
Okay. And so you quit the job when you went to university?
When I went to university, I quit the job. But I would work over holidays. They would still take me over holidays. I think I just became somebody they groomed as I was going. By third year, then I found a permanent job. So I was one of those that found a permanent job in third year. And fourth year, by the grace of God, I think Leah laughs. I would tell Leah from MultiChoice, I'll tell Leah, get the notes properly because I'm going for work. So fourth year, I worked the whole year. But third year was my last year of working with Bob Lowe.
Okay. Yeah. And your career from the early days, how was it?
So third year, because I worked at QuickSave, so I think in the old days, QuickSave was like ShopRite. So when I say I started a permanent job, I started off as a shelf packer. So packing the shelves when they buy, and it was at Macro. So Macro was the big warehouse. Started off from there. Then one day the CEO was like, oh, so what are you doing at the university? So I gave him the subjects, and I go, oh, you do HR. Okay, I want us to start an HR department because the business has grown, because there were like 20 QuickSaves across the country. So that's how I started as HR. I had no clue what HR was. I'd go and ask the lecturer, so what am I supposed to do? Or open files and stuff like that. So third year, I started off as an HR officer at QuickSave. By the time my friends were finishing in fourth year, I had already had 2 years experience, right? Because I've been working and they're at school. Finished, worked a year, then Celtel, then it was Zamcell, was changing into Celtel. They wanted an HR officer. I didn't even apply. My boyfriend then was like, hey, you can do it. I'm thinking, Celtel, And that's how he actually applied for me and told me, the interviews are on this day. I went to the interviews, passed the interview, started work there, and the rest, they say, is history. In 2 months, I worked for 2 months, literally 2 months. My boss then was fired, and I was like HR manager. And I'm like, looking around, I'm 22. How am I HR manager for this big organization at 22? But the company was very kind to me. By 26, I was HR director, changed a few things, employed people that would change the company. And that's how the HR bag started. So if I didn't do that job in third year, I wouldn't be ready. So sometimes you think life is punishing you, because I was doing these jobs because I couldn't go. There was no way to go back. I wasn't going to go back. So when my friends are going home, I had to find a job. Otherwise, I won't pay the fees, right? So the preparation was good enough for me to be promoted very quickly.
Okay, so you said, and the rest is history. For those that don't know what history is, this is what history is. So I may not list all of them.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at your LinkedIn. You've mentioned Airtel. You were HR director there. You were changed to Zen. You were still there. You became HR director at Zamtel. You were a head of human capital at Concola Copper Mines. You went on to, I knew you from Stanbic, where you were head of human capital. And then you went to SA, then now you are executive head of people and marketing.
Yes.
We'll talk about the marketing later. But so that kind of rise. Did you see this happening when you were packing shelves?
So when I was packing shelves, to be honest, I knew this is not where I'm going to end. Because I'm packing shelves with people that are at a certain level of understanding and quickly you're rising up as their leader, and you know that this can be my end, right? But I didn't think it would be that fast. Maybe that's the thing. I got a mentor very quickly. So when I was packing shelves, I had Pastor J who made me read books. So I would disappear from the normal life and be in the book. So if it's Who Moved My Cheese, he would make me read a book in a week, and every Saturday we would sit and he'd tell me, okay, what did you learn? What did you learn? So I think that made me be a bit more cognizant of the fact that there is more. There should be more than what this life is. But I didn't think it would be that fast, and I didn't think it would take me to Africa. So Airtel was the first view. First, I worked in Malawi for a few months. When I was 27, I was getting bored. So I was director, then I'm like, okay, I'm bored. I've been doing this HR manager. And so if you're promoted in the same company, you're doing almost the same thing. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting bored. And the people that I've employed also want to be promoted, right? So I did Malawi stint a bit. Then when you're working in a conglomerate, they saw my potential. Going to Nigeria in Airtel is the one that really made me start to think, actually, so I know something. Working around here, I was like, okay, we're just doing things. And Airtel was a fun place because I had people that were young, were my age, we were experimental. And I had one trick that I hired all the time. I hired people that were hungry. I looked at how hungry I was, and somebody gave me a chance. So I always hired people that were hungry. And for those people, they're easy to motivate because the salary is a motivator. But I remember, I won't mention name, there was one director that I was saying before he was a director, I was like, I'm going to buy you a brand new car if you just make us go to 1 million subscribers. And he's like, are you sure, director? And yeah, I'll buy you a brand new car from the showroom with you tearing the plastics. I'm telling you, we were 1 million subscribers in just 6 months. Because this guy, people that are hungry are people that you need that push it forward. So I had a trick of knowing where I came from and how hungry I was. And I wanted to push people like that. So I hired hungry people.
For you to get to where you are, obviously there were some things that you were doing. because not every shelf packer ends up as director HR or ends up with this trailblazing career that you have.
Yeah.
When you look back, what were you doing that brought you to where you are now?
So the first thing that I would say is having a good coach. And I think at the time we didn't call them coach. For me, it was just my pastor. Having a person that believes in you. So I had a good coach who would tell me if you're more than what you see. So having those words spoken over you, for me, those were important. That was one. Secondly, I was very hungry for skills. So I self-taught a lot of things. Most people would think I was just in HR, but in CellTel or in whatever company I worked, I would even act as a CEO. I would talk into marketing, I would talk into sales, because you're learning and you're experimenting. So people are not curious. So maybe that's the second thing that I was curious. Just curiosity to say, okay, how are we making money here and how can we make it better? That's the second thing. The last thing I would say is surround yourself with good people. So I've had the same best friends for we were counting the other day, I said last 28 years. And these are hungry women.
Those ladies you posed with,
yes,
at church or something?
Yes, those are hungry women. I mean, we've been together, we've rented an apartment together. We were like 8 girls in a 2-room apartment. Surround yourself with people that will push you, celebrate you. When you're down, they'll lift you up. So, and we had dreams. We learned very early how to journal and write your dreams. There's nothing that I've done that I can't say that I've written somewhere. It was in a journal somewhere. Starting a magazine was in a journal somewhere. I'm like, okay, I want to start a magazine. I want to start this one. So I think have a mentor or a coach. That's one. Secondly, be curious and have skills. Skills can be anything. So I learn things that don't even make sense to people. So I want to learn. The last one is surround yourself with strong people that will lift you up. So those are 3 secrets that I've had all the time. So even when I'm having a bad time and I go to these girls, they'll be like, I remember you said you do this. Or this is just a setback. There'll be a comeback. So surround yourself with people like that, yeah.
All right. When you talk about journals and whatnot, I think about 3 or 4 days ago, my wife told me she's going to buy a notebook. So I thought she's one of these plain notebooks.
Yeah.
So like 2 hours she's gone, she's not coming. She comes back and comes with 3 of them. No, this journal, this what. I was like, where'd you go and buy them from? She says, I went to Miracle Life at the bookshop.
Yes.
I said, you have to drive that far? She's like, yeah. Because now she's also taking on that journey.
Yes.
But the thing I want to understand, and I know others want to understand, is you've mentioned the power of writing things down.
Yeah.
Other people are keen on vision boards. And now it's like it's a fancy thing, vision boards and writing things down.
Yes.
Talk to me about how that makes you then achieve your goals. Because I can write something down. That's not enough.
Yeah. When you journal, let me talk about goals. So I tell people, goals by themselves don't mean anything. You can write it down, it doesn't mean anything. There has to be some things that you're changing to achieve those goals, right? There's this book, Atomic Habits. I read
James
through
Clear.
it last year. I'm going through it again. The fact that you have a goal and you're not changing something doesn't mean that you're going to achieve it. So I tell people, write it down. Yes, it's good. Thinking about it, write it down. At least you've got a reference point. But ask yourself, these goals, what should I change to achieve, right? So I've done my goals this year. I'm like, okay, these goals, there's one that I'm just like, okay, what should I change to achieve? I need to change how I eat, need to change how I exercise, need to change my water intake. So if I want to get that goal weight, there's things that I need to do on a daily basis to get there. But most of us think, write it down, especially, and I'll talk to Zambians, especially us Zambians. You go on an overnight, this is a year of what. It's a year of what. But what are you doing physically and consciously? What habits are you changing to achieve? So yes, the pastor can declare it, but you've got to do the work, you see. So people don't want to do the work. And that's where it makes it, so a vision board just makes it clearer for you. Like every day you're looking at it and you're like, I said I wanted to lose 20 kilos. How far am I? That's a vision board. But daily habits need to change. And that's the thing that even for me, when I coach people. I don't coach you on, oh, there's a goal. I'm like, okay, so to get to that goal, what are you changing yourself? What is the habit that you're changing? Or what is if it's a financial goal, let's look at your finances. What are you shedding off to get to that financial goal? So do the work to get to the goal.
All right, so you mentioned something interesting again on the subject of mentorship.
Yeah.
It's something that many people realize is important, but most people don't know what to expect from a mentor-mentee relationship. And some people, you find you begin to draw from your mentor because you feel like, it's too much pressure. They keep reminding me of what I'm doing, and it's too hard for me. Realistically, if I want to grow, if I want to make progress, either in my career or my business, and I say, okay, I'm coming to Eve as a mentor, what should I expect to get out of that mentorship, and how is the process like?
Okay. So there's a difference between mentorship and coaching. So let me talk about mentorship. So mentorship is somebody who's done something that you want to do, right? So if I'm mentoring you, it's something that I'm a subject matter expert on. The thing about mentoring most of the time is you as a mentee need to know what you want to get and make your mentor aware, and you work at it together. So if I flip it to coaching, which is you going to somebody who is wide, they can be a subject matter expert, and you want them to help you on a journey, you're recognizing that you have to do the work. Now, the thing that I've seen a lot of people is you call somebody mentor that you haven't set the goals for the mentorship. So you're mentoring me for what? You haven't set the goals. You don't meet with that person. I tell people, especially Christians, TDJX can be your mentor. He doesn't know you. He can't tell you who you are. So for me, a mentor is somebody who, at least even once a quarter, you sit and you say, oh, this is where we were, this is where I am, how am I navigating? TDJX is an inspiration that we all garner through. So find a goal. What is he mentoring you for? Set specific targets with your mentor. And at the end of the day, how are you measuring them? It's the same SMART thing. Your mentor should be able to say, okay, this is what your targets are, and I'm holding you to this. Now, the reason why mentorship most times doesn't work, it can be mentorship in perpetuity. Even for me, when I coach, I don't coach people 5 years. Then it stopped being, now it's just a friendship, or it's a symbiotic relationship. So there has to be a timeline where you're like, okay, I've learned from Eve, but I want to learn from somebody else. And even yourself, you need to know, when have you gotten enough from your current person? Because you get to a point where I wrote once, and it landed me in problems because I was so frustrated, where when a mentor and a mentee start competing, and I see it all the time, you start competing because you feel now I'm there where they were, now they are trying to hold me back. Then it's time for you to move, because I can hold you back if you've reached my level of capacity and you need to surpass me. So you need to go to somebody else. So I shouldn't hold you bondage because, and it's this, so we bring spiritual father things into the mentorship relationship. It can be a spiritual father in perpetuity, but a mentor, you need to know when this relationship is
it's
done.
time to go.
Yeah, and when you've learned enough. So, and the mentor should be mature enough to release you.
Okay, and another issue is now, for those who are trying to grow in careers, the subject of career sponsors.
Yeah.
Did you ever have one?
I've always had, so I think for me, because of being intentional, and Pastor Jay is a Nigerian, so Nigerians have got a way of teaching you that, look, in any place that you go, there's a chief, and you need to make sure that the chief gets to sponsor what you're doing. So I've always had, because of the way I sit, I've always had my CEOs as my sponsors. And sponsorship is just somebody who makes the way finer for you to do, like takes away stumbling blocks. That's a sponsor, right? So it should be somebody in your organization that is influential, that can make the pathway faster for you. The thing that I say about sponsors is, they need to understand that, first of all, both of you need to understand what the relationship is. But you, as a person who's looking for a sponsor, my job is not to tell you that, oh, there's that job and I'm going to make you be the person. No. The sponsor will just make you aware, but you need to do the work. And I'm emphasizing that, right? So I've always had CEOs as my sponsors. That's one. But over and above that, a sponsor can only sponsor you when they know what your aspiration is. So most of the time you want a sponsor. You yourself, you don't know what your aspiration is. So how am I sponsoring you? I don't know what you want to do in the next 5 years. So I always ask people, they sponsor me. I'm like, so tell me, what's your next 5 years? How are you moving towards that? And how can I help you get there? So again, it's important that you yourself have done the work for you to get a sponsor. In an organization, you find sponsors are not just like you go to somebody and say, oh, hi, Zoe, can you be my sponsor? I think the relationship morphs when they see how you perform, they see how hungry you are, they see where you're going, they see how achieving of your careers are, because the sponsor also needs to be willing to sponsor you. I won't sponsor somebody who's a non-performer. Yeah. No matter how you come and you tell me, oh, my hair is looking nice, or I don't. So there has to be an attribute of performance to it as well.
Yeah. The thing I've come to learn about sponsors is that it's also an issue of borrowed credibility.
Yes.
If I sponsor Eve and Eve is a non-performer and she goes somewhere, it becomes the issue, but what's so? It's very serious.
Yeah,
and so it takes away the next person who actually is a performer.
Exactly.
But because of the three guys that were just jokers, people just say, no one from you anymore. But also on this journey that you've taken, what have been the frustrations that you've gone through? And how do you still manage to, shake them off and continue on your path?
I think the biggest one is I work in a field. So HR, I tell people, HR is a thankless job. That's why maybe now meshing it out makes it more exciting for me. It's a thankless job in that when the organization is thriving, you're the best HR person. When the organization is not thriving and things are not working, it's like you're the fallback person. The people you're employing, the people you're bringing on board, the performance management system is not working. So you're always fighting for the space where you try and understand that actually HR is an enabler for business. And I'm not the one who's supposed to do performance management. Your managers should do performance management. So my most frustrating times is working with maybe an organization or a company where they think HR is what do they call these? A supporting function. I've never worked, for me, even if I found it as a supporting function, I'll put it as a front line. Because I always make sure that they understand that if your HR is not front and center, the organization won't work. And that's why people say, but how come you, when you're working in an organization, you're the one that the CEO is, you're like the right-hand person? I'm like, because then I make sure they understand the value of not HR, but the value of people. Because most companies that don't, you find they yo-yo, they're up to there, then the CEO hasn't understood the value of a good HR person. A good HR person would even give you indicators to say, guys, where we are going, yes, you can talk about sales, you can talk about but if the people are not right, you will not achieve. You will achieve 1 year, go down another year, achieve 1 year, go down. So I make sure I create an environment where we invest in our people, we understand who our key talent is, we do amazing work with the key talent, so that if there's anybody who are laggers, and maybe that when I was younger, the laggers, I just didn't even feel bad. I would just cut off and bring in people that are hungry. But now that maybe they've grown old, I'm like, their families and all that, maybe let me work with them, But yeah, so HR, if a company doesn't understand why HR is there, or if you've got a bad HR person, that company will yo-yo.
What's a bad HR person?
Somebody who just does tactical things. They pay, they hire, they fire, they do talent learning. That's a bad HR. For me, if you're a transactional HR person, they're still coming. If your CEO only comes to you for transactions, you're a bad HR person. A good HR person is one who's a business person. So I am a partner. I can see in the business, yes, you want to do this, but I can tell you these are the things that I'm seeing. So you're a change manager, that's first. You're a transformational leader, that's second. And thirdly, you're a business person. You have to understand, how are we making money? Where are we losing money? How do the people work in terms of making sure that we don't lose and we make more? That's a good HR person.
Okay, you mentioned the bit about change. Here is, if you come to this organization, the people are the people. You have found them, the good ones, the bad ones, the what. Now comes in the idea of change management. The same ones that you have, change them to become what you want. Because you can't fire everyone. How then do you do effective change management?
So I've been in organizations where I find it at a certain level. I won't mention name. I find it at a certain level where it's kumbaya, it's business as usual. The first thing that I normally do is find pockets of excellence, people that are great, find that talent bunch and start working with that talent bunch, because those are the ones who are going to influence the others. So most of the time people will accuse me to say, oh, she came and she now found 6 people and she was doing projects with these 6 people. Because I know how to spot talent, and it won't be in one department, it will be across. Create a wave and an agency of change. And you can only do it in any organization. They are good people, because then the organization will survive, right? But you have a good eye for who are those good people. And sometimes the good people are the ones who are the neglected ones, because they're these ones that you've always had or are in front, but you all know that they don't work. I go for the ones that I know they understand the system, they understand the work, and they want to grow. Get those in a bunch. 10% of the organization can shift the entire organization. So I make people be jealous to be part of that group. And that group then starts to steamroll the business change. And be careful that if there are people who are destructive, be very careful not to carry them along. Find a way of letting go of the people that, because in any change, there will be people who sit, I tell people it's like a dance floor. When people are dancing on the dance floor, there are those people who are like, no, me, I'll just sit here. Two people can start a dance, 3, 4, 5. But at the time when now it becomes like half the people are still on the dance floor and you're still sitting down and you're telling, the way this organization is, and then you're not fit to be here. So I said, for people who are sitting, value yourself and see, do you want to be in this organization, or you can find your value elsewhere? And sometimes people just don't fit in the organization that you're building. It's okay to say, you know what, for where you were the fit, but for where we are going, you can't fit.
Yeah, and I think also I learned somewhere, it says it's the same with the business. So for example, Eve is head of HR for a company, 20 people, right? Then the company grows, we have 300. Eve has no experience managing HR for 300 people.
300,
so
yeah.
Eve must accept that, look, I have to go somewhere. Not even where you're a bad person or hate you, it's a capacity issue.
Yeah, capacity
But most
issue.
people, like you said, I think, no, Eve has got a family, she's got children, so let's keep Eve at what cost? You
Yeah.
get the point, right?
Yeah.
So that's also a problem. But for most people that see HR, the number one thing they know is hiring staff. When you're getting people on the team, I know you mentioned people are hungry. From the very beginning, and the first contact obviously is a CV. When you get a CV, I saw somewhere that HR people, or when they're hiring the recruitment team, they take 3 seconds to look at the CV and that's it. What do you look at when you look at the resume?
So most times, by the time the resume is coming on my desk, it's gone through a lot of blocks, right? So people have sieved through it. But the thing that has helped me is there is AI now. So by the time, if I advertise a role today, I'll get 3,000 CVs, right? There should be AI that will sift through to tell me what I'm looking for and the people that would have had that experience. So yes, people lie on CVs. So maybe you go through the cracks. Then the first point of call is somebody now looking at it and saying, what experience has Eve done? Okay, she's worked here, she's worked there, she's worked there. Okay, there's experience there, put her aside. And that's why they say HR people just look 3-4 times. Because I just look, where have you worked, what have you done? On the side. Where have you worked, what have you done, right? You can't, and I tell people, sometimes you find a job is looking for 10 years experience, but you've got 2 years experience. Obviously, the AI would have pushed you aside at that point. But once the long list of 3,000 comes to 20, then I'm critically looking at those 20 and wanting to find out a bit more. And that's when we now go on your LinkedIn. So I would have somebody go on your LinkedIn, just see and validate that your profile is saying the same. So that by the time we're cutting to the 10, we are sure that we've checked your LinkedIn. For some roles, I even check social media. I would tell somebody to check their social media just to see that they were jailing. And at that point, then we call you for interviews. So CVs is important, but make sure you're writing the right things in the CVs, because we do counter checks. And people don't know how to write CVs. Let me put it that way. They'll write duties they did. I'm not looking for duties you've done. I'm looking for skills you have. And I've been telling people this all the time. Put down your skills, your skill set, things that you... I'm an HR person, but I've done transformation, I've done change. I've dabbled into acquisition and mergers. I can't see that if you just write the duties, right? I've bought a company before and I've merged 2 entities before. Those are the things that I'm looking for to see. But most people will say, I worked for this company and I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't tell me the skills. So now be very conscious of saying, yes, I worked for this company. These are the skills that I garnered, and you list them down. At least then I'll know that, oh, Sui, yes, is doing this. And some skills you won't even think you would need at the job. You would have a skill of maybe, for me, who's like a big social media person, a skill is like when they're looking for marketing, what are the skills that I do on social media that I just do naturally, but I haven't thought that that's a skill, right?
Yeah.
You do it naturally. You know how to edit, you know how to chop and put them there because maybe that's what I'm looking for. So people don't know how to sell themselves from a skills perspective. And that's the thing that's changing now for CVs.
There's a time we spoke about a few years ago and you said you have over 20 years experience and your CV is 3 pages.
Yes.
Some people think the more pages a CV has means the more I've done or the more I'm accomplished.
But it's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise on CVs. That's what I'm saying. If you're telling me what you're doing, you might, if you listed what you do on a daily basis on this podcast, it can be 3 pages, right? But if you now are succinct to say, this is the job, this is was my title, these are the achievements I did, you can't have 20 pages because you're now selling yourself from a skills and achievement perspective. So especially for people who are now senior manager, director, you need to be a bit more succinct. You can't write everything. So on my CV, I wouldn't even write, hey, I was a shelf packer at Metro. I would just list the companies. But I really want to talk about the skills that I have, what I've achieved, and my attributes, yeah.
Right. So they say that for entry-level jobs, what's important is technical skills, and then as you rise up is the issue of soft skills.
Yes.
For managers, what are the important, you must have these soft skills?
So if you think about a manager, how does one become a manager? And some people skip, right? So you are part of the team, you become a team leader, right? So a team leader, you're doing what the team is doing, but you're just now coordinating what they're doing. When you come to manager, you're not a team leader. You are setting the strategic tone of that department. So you need to be able at least to understand what's a company strategy, how does it relate to me, how do I relate it to my team. So you have to be strategic. That's one thing. To be strategic, you have to now know soft skills that you need to lead these people. So people say leadership. I ask people, what is leadership? If you think about it, what is leadership? Leadership on its own, it's a broad term, but it's how do you connect people to the vision and purpose? That's leadership. So there's a vision. How do I connect them to the vision and purpose? How do I understand my team and making sure that the team needs are met and I understand their inadequacies and their adequacies? It's folly for a manager not to understand that Eve is this height and can't do that. A manager should be able to understand. So when you're giving work, you understand who can do it faster, who can do it slower, who's got attention to detail, who is so I hire for those skills, right? So the skills that I hate, I hire for. The skills that I love, I maintain. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I think a manager should have, and we haven't said for it more, is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is just not reading the room and knowing how to connect, but emotional intelligence to know when is my team tired, when is my team disengaged, when is my team fired up. And if they're fired up, can I leave them alone to do it? If they're tired, can I come alongside them and show them how to do it? So that emotional intelligence, if you don't connect to your team, even if the team is 5, they are going through life. Somebody got a divorce, somebody was cheated on yesterday, but they come to the office. You need to have that emotional intelligence to know that, hey, let me give her a break because she's going through this, but I'll make sure that these people pick up the slack. So what managers do is like, we think we are we're leading machines, that they're supposed to forget everything that happened at home and come to the office and deliver. People have got real lives, right? So you need to, not in an intrusive way, but be emotionally intelligent and sensitive to understand where your people are. The last one that I can give you that is becoming a big thing that people don't pay attention to is, as a manager, your actual job is to make sure that you are coaching people, meaning you're asking questions, but you're not providing answers. Because the managers of old, we used to come and say, I want you to do this and I want you to do it like this. Meaning, I'm just projecting what I think. But a good manager will know how to say, guys, this is a challenge that we have. I'm giving it to you to go and do it. And this is my expectations or my outcome that I'm expecting. And leave people to figure it out. Because they might figure out a quicker way. They might figure out a way that is more cost effective. They might figure out something different. But in the past, what we used to do is, as a manager, is I want to give you a task. I want to give you how to do it. And I want to give you when to deliver it. So those are things that I've kind of like, when I'm coaching managers, is teach them how to ask good questions and let your team figure it out.
Okay.
So quite a mouthful, but
Did you ever have to deal with a difficult boss?
Oh yes, I've dealt with difficult bosses. You want me to think about the one? I think when I got into the banking, so I'm very creative. I'm very I color outside the lines. That's I don't follow the rules. Banking is a lot more rule-centric. And I was happy because I had a CEO who allowed me. But one of my matrix bosses in group wanted me to be like this, follow the banking, whatever. At the beginning, it was a very difficult relationship because I'm like, let's be creative, let's do this. No. The policy says, I'm just like, oh,
compliance.
God, And I remember once I did something and he threw me under the bus and I was going home driving. And I'm thinking, this is the day I'm fired. Because he just was too rigid for my HRness. For me, I'm like, let's color, let's have fun, let's have a bar in the office, that's me. Like, I'm like, okay, we've got a lot of millennials here, let's open a place where they can go and chill and draw and whatever. And he's like, oh, but this is a bank. So it took us a long time to get to a place where we understood each other. And I don't think we really did. When I went to South Africa and I worked for Group, he became my colleague. I think that's the only time we healed our relationship. But when he was my boss, it was quite hard. Yeah.
What did you learn from that experience that made you a better leader?
So the day I was driving home thinking I'm fired, I had to learn to say, it's not, and that's the thing that I was coaching somebody yesterday and I'm thinking, it's not my company as Eve, it's a bigger organization, but within the bigger organization, understand that people are different. So I had to understand that this boss is different from who I am. How do I make the relationship, so how do I become subservient to make it better? So it's not like I've ditched my brain. Sometimes I would even tell him the most obvious things that I wouldn't tell my other bosses, like, this is what I'm doing, this is my thought process, this is what so just to understand the other person and be able to, and I tell staff this, my job as a person who's reporting to somebody is to understand my boss. If I don't understand my boss, I've already failed. So I understand who they are, how their makeup, and what they need to see progress. Then we'll be able to work together. So some things were frustrating. Some things were like mundane, but I'm just like, okay, if this is what will make you comfortable, that I'm doing what you need me to do, then I'll be able to do it. So learning to understand the other person, that was one. But also for myself is learning that fear of I'm being fired. I've never been like outrightly fired in my life. So that fear of I'm being fired made me think, and then what? My child's school and what? And it made me think, this is how, when I'm doing my job as HR and I'm firing, this is what people go through. It made me a bit more human. Like I really had to pause and say, if I'm fired today, what will happen? What will happen to this? What will happen to that? So made me a bit more human. So being in that position made me a bit more considerate, so that now when I'm going through somebody that we're terminating or we're going through a process, I'm a bit more careful how I deliver the message than before. Before I was bullish. I'll just tell you, my friend,
It's not me, it's you.
Hey, the journey is not, we've come to the end of the road. Yeah, so it made me a bit more human. Yeah.
Okay. Headhunting. How does someone position themselves to a level where they're looking for you?
So I'm thinking about how it works for me, maybe. So first of all, I'll tell you small things. So if you want to be the person who people will look for, be very good at what you do. Very good. That they can't talk about HR without mentioning your name. Or they can't talk about marketing without mentioning your name. Or they can't talk about technical. So whatever that field is, be very good at it, right? That's the first one. Second one, be very good at networking. Headhunting is actually done in the network space. So your network should be deliberately selling yourself. So I tell people, you won't see me in a lot of spaces, but I go to the spaces that I know that if I go there, I want to leave an impact so that people would remember who I am. So I'm not everywhere that they think, she's just making noise. Because some people think noise is what gets you headhunted. No, it's being deliberate. So I've got the skills. My network is solid. I've made sure that I've got a good network. The third thing that is and I write about it in my book, your gravitas. People don't spend time thinking about their posture, how they present themselves, learning how to speak, for instance, learning how to present, all those things. They sound small, but they add to the euphoria of the person, right? So they add to who you are as a whole career person. So think about your gravitas, think about your network. Your skill set should speak for themselves. Then when you're presenting yourself on these social media platforms, and that's where we headhunters would go. So if I'm going through LinkedIn, I'm curious what you post. There are people who post things that don't make sense on LinkedIn, right? Be intentional about how your page on LinkedIn appears. So I can post silly things on Facebook, which is my Facebook personal one. I can't afford to post silly things on LinkedIn. That's the thing. And how I've structured my profile also. And LinkedIn helps because they'll tell you these are the skills that you have. Because a headhunter will go for the skills. And that's why I was talking about skills. So I would go on LinkedIn, find you, then be able to have filters in the network. So I don't headhunt somebody without picking up a phone and saying, oh, you're in Malawi, this is the Malawi market. I'm looking for marketing people. Who comes to your mind? And if the name keeps popping up, then I know I want to talk to them. If the name is like, the name is popping up in the negative, and I'm just like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. So network is important.
There are people that, I know you mentioned the network and whatnot, but there was someone I was talking to and they said, some of us don't recognize team finance.
Mm-hmm.
So there are, so what it means is there are some careers, for example, HR, okay, you are visible in an organization. You get a point, right? You are HR because you are everywhere. Someone in marketing is out there, is on radio, they're on what, in the company, the events, they are seen. I'm in finance, as in I just do the...
Yeah, but when I'm headhunting for a finance role, how have you networked with your fellow finance persons that they know who you are? So there is no place where... So even a finance person, how are you perceived in Zika? Are you out there trying to make people aware of what you're doing? Are you should be, there should be an organization that you can also try and network within, that people will be able to say, there's that accountant there. Because remember, I'm looking for accountants, I'm looking for technical people, I'm looking for pharmacists. I mean, somebody would say, I'm just a pharmacist. But the moment the pharmacist job comes, are you the first person that people are going to talk to me about? And how are they going to talk to me about is about your delivery, how you've networked and sold yourself. Every one of us are in sales. I tell people, finance technical. We are all in sales. What are we selling? We're selling our skills. That's the only thing that you're doing. We are all salespeople. By the way we package ourselves, we're selling. Even if I went to the biggest organization, what am I selling? I'm selling my skills. So we are all in sales. So that packaging of, if you want your career to grow, unfortunately, you need to sell yourself.
Talk about networking. Some people think networking is, I go to Eve, or Eve, if you hear anything about marketing, I'm looking for a job, I go to that one. If you hear anything, is that how it works?
No. So when I'm talking about networking, for me is how do you, so if, let's be more practical. So if there's a Zika conference and you're in that place, there are people who ask answers. There are people who ask questions like, how did he think about that? Or if there's an opportunity to present, you're the one who's presenting. That draws people to who you are, right? So you do intentional things around engagement. Actually, let me call it that. There's a place where you engage. If you're coming to me and say, if you hear anything, you're not engaging me. You're actually just abusing our relationship. But there's a way you would engage me to tell me, oh, this is where I am and this is what I'm doing and and this is how I want to grow. Maybe you can coach me with some few tweaks or whatever. Or I'm in a place where there is a pool that is telling me there's something there for that guy. Like, how does he think? How did he present? How did he ask that question? What is it that he's thinking about? So those things draw people to you. So you need to think about, even in social media, they say, oh, your engagement. There are likes and there's engagement. How does that engagement come? You find somebody has just asked the question, and that's a question that tilts the whole entire conversation. That person understands engagement. So think about it from a perspective of, how am I engaging? How am I giving of my service? So sometimes you'd volunteer. Sometimes you would be in committees. Sometimes you would, even if it's you're the most. Somebody told me, but me, I'm an introvert. I'm like, even the most introvert. It's about how you volunteer to say, can I do this for you guys at an organizational level? There are you be recognized. So if you're in a company, why is it that the same people are the ones who are doing projects? It's because the same people are putting up their hand.
The thing you mentioned, I can relate. 2 years ago, I got a job offer because I went to the Zoom conference and asked a question. And I think when it ended following Monday, I couldn't take the job.
Yeah.
Because that was the time I was going to Zamtel.
Yeah.
But, that I understand.
Yeah.
Because no one also likes hi, Eve, we met at the conference last
Yes.
year. I'm trying to change career. I'm like, no. Even I go like, no. That's not how it works. But people just feel like you're just leeching off them. You know? But then also, when it comes to the workplace, there are issues of performance management. And that's the part many people dread. I don't know, for some reason. My performance management is coming up. How do I prepare for it?
So if you dread
Or
it...
my performance appraisal, actually.
Appraisal, yes.
Appraisal.
So appraisal is coming up. So I think people dread appraisals because organizations are at fault. The organizations are flawed. So I tell people an appraisal shouldn't be an occasion. It should be a daily thing. So for my team, when we're coming to the end of the year, my team knows who's a high performer, who's a mediocre performer, who's a low performer. There is no surprises. I hate organizations that surprise. So for me, it's in your stand-up meetings, it's an appraisal. You haven't done this, you've done that, you need to improve here. You know. So if you're dreading it, then maybe you know that you didn't deliver on your tasks. So how do people prepare? We're starting the year now. I tell people, even if your boss is bad, draw up something that you think these are the things that I want to achieve. And maybe in this year, this is what I need to achieve. Let him agree to those things, at least agreed to say, okay, these are the things you're going to achieve. But don't wait for the occasion, the big thing that's happening in December. I tell people every month, go to your boss and ask them 2 questions. What am I doing well? Where should I improve? Just 2 questions. And it can be over coffee. And my team knows, like, what am I doing? What am I doing well? Where do I need to improve? And that way, you are slowly, gradually getting to the place where if I'm telling you improve the same thing over and over again, then you should know, okay, this is a place where I need to either get training or upskill myself or do something. But if you've prepared for yourself and you've had these conversations with your boss, and I like people who document it. So you have that conversation. Oh, thank you very much, Sui, for the conversation we had today. I like the fact that you told me I'm doing well here, but improvement is this, and I'm going to work on it like this, like this, like this. You've got a portfolio of evidence. So that when you're going at the end of a year, I tell people, what is your portfolio of evidence? Like you've done so we agreed on this and we've done it. The reason why people dread appraisals is badly written contracts. And contracts is that contract for the year of things that you're going to do, badly written measurements and outcomes. So if you don't know what good looks like, and I will tell you now, I coach so many managers who don't know what good looks like for themselves and for their staff. They're just going, right? So when the CEO tells the director that they didn't work well, the director tells the manager, then the manager comes and tells me, but boss, we were moving together the whole time. It's because maybe the director didn't explain what the outcome should look like and the manager doesn't know. So agreeing on what good looks like is important. But finally, let it not be an occasion. Let it not be a once-off or companies say, mid-year and end of year. No, I want to have this interaction that is continuously going. Yes, we can now formally document mid-year and formally document at the end of the year. But the thing, like I spoke about, remember when we talked about managers, I want my team to win. I'm not looking for a team that is weak. So every month I'm giving you feedback because I want you to win. Actually, my aim is all of you to be high performing as a leader. So I try as much as possible to give you feedback to make sure that you're winning. Now, this culture of, it has to be a bell curve, then there are people who are here, so the manager is trying so much to give, there's somebody who's underperforming. If the manager worked his way through the year, nobody would demand of a bell curve of a team that's winning. I won't demand of it. Because I know that, that team did their work and they did it to the best of their knowledge. The only reason when people ask for bell curves is when the organization is not performing. When the organization is performing, bell curves are thrown off.
I've had conversations with people who you do HR and then there is an opportunity that comes to rise, but it's got nothing to do with HR. So I still want to keep HR in the future because in the future I want to be head of people somewhere. I want to be head of human capital somewhere. But I feel like this opportunity I'm getting now has got nothing to do with HR. The company won't pay for me to go and attend the Zerium conference and whatnot and all that. So I feel like if I do 3-4 years of this thing, I am disadvantaging myself for a higher HR opportunity that may come. Maybe HR, maybe something else. Okay? How do people manage those kinds of things where, for example, I'm in PR, then something comes unrelated to that, a good opportunity in the company, but then I feel like if I do this, then it means my experience it's like there's a gap now. I may not get a higher role in PR because they'll see me as not being in tune with the trends. I've been disconnected for a long time. So how do I manage that?
So there's a way you can manage it that is, so first of all, when you're asking that question, the thing that was coming to me is like, I actually want an HR that has left HR and gone and done something else and come back. Those are the best HR people. HR that has left, and I'll give you, even when I was in the bank, I had one person who, actually the person who succeeded me came from the business. I took somebody who was completely business oriented. We spoke over coffee and she told me she wanted to come to HR. By then she was head of sales in another bank, and I brought her in because a best person is a person who's garnered skills. So I don't see people who leave what their traditional thing is to go and garner skills as a disruption. I want to understand, how did you morph and how are you coming back? So that's an HR that's thinking well. So I have people who've done several things because they've got other skills that you need for the HR role. Okay, so for you who's PR. But the way you would keep abreast with the trends is important as well. So don't throw away the network. So where the company won't pay for Zrim, I'll pay for Zrim myself because I know that I want to come back, or I know I want to maintain that. There are things that maybe, and I'm using Zrim as an example, they've got those monthly catch-ups. Just be there because you're part of that community. So don't leave the community because you've got a new community. So I do dual roles now. I haven't left the HR community to focus on the marketing community. I'm actually like, I've got a marketing community and I've got an HR community. And I spread myself on both communities because I know I'm getting something. Because you don't want to, the trends have moved, but you've left. So keep in the community. But also you as an employee, have your story right for your detours. Most people don't have a right story for the detour. They'll just be like, an opportunity came and I grabbed it. And if the HR who's sitting on this side is transactional, they say he's not serious, right? Because the HR is transactional. But if you need to practice your story. Why? I took this detour because I wanted to gather more skills that I'm going to use like this in the role. So connect your detour to the role that you're saying. And these are the things that I learned that I think I'll use like this. So you would hope the persons who are interviewing are not transactional. If you meet a transactional person, woe is you. But most HR people would understand that actually, by you doing something else, you've garnered skills that you can use on this thing. Because remember now, jobs are not boxes. I tell people, I'm in an HR role, but when I get into the boardroom, I answer 2 questions for HR. I'm asking actuarial questions. I'm asking sales questions. I'm a different person when I sit on that table. I'm not just answering HR questions. I'm answering all the other business questions. So your story for the detour needs to be practiced. And that's why you need a coach. Because a coach will tell you, so how do we match these experiences that you've had? And I tell people, when you're going for an interview, even if it means pay somebody who will do a coaching session with you to have your story right. Interviewing is about storytelling. I tell people, interviewing is a story. It's a discussion. So you need to have practiced your story right. And I'm not saying verbatim memorize, but connect the things that you've had properly. So when I start the interview and they ask me, who are you? I don't leave out the fact that, look, I'm from Chifubu, which is a very poor place. And it's part of my story. It's part of my journey. So that they understand my thinking, and that I'm thinking like this because of where I'm coming from. So if you have an interview, maybe that's a nugget that I would tell people. I know people would say, but to pay, I don't know how much coaches in Zambia cost, to pay 2,000 kwacha to go and get coached. It's important. If the job is important to you, just get somebody to look at your CV and ask you to connect the dots. Because you at ZNBC, there is a story there that your current employer will need. If you didn't do that, you won't do this. You've got connections that you created there that your current employer will need. So how do you weave that into the interview process if you haven't practiced it? Because you forget, and people forget, like, have you been to an interview where you're just coming out and like, I should have said this. I should have said that. It's because you don't practice. So for me, I think people fail interviews because they don't practice. And you think you just go in.
Talking about practicing interviews, there's one time I was telling people, I was like, it's good to attend interviews even though you've got no plans of getting the job. Because sometimes you find some people take 10 years.
Yes.
You've never done
an interview.
Then there's this job that you see and you really want it. And then you can make mistakes you should have made elsewhere where you didn't want it. But people don't do that. But then also, if I'm in an interview, how do I come back from a knockout? Like, that's my question that totally knocks me out. I've got no idea. And others then just get shaken and the whole interview reflects that blackout.
I've been in places where I can even see the person is blank, like they don't have an answer to this. Acknowledge that you don't know. Just say, I coming to think about it. For me, actually, maybe it's my age. These days, I even forget stuff. I would tell you that. Can we come back to that a bit later? I'm trying to think of the word, but I'll come back to it. You don't have to show that you know everything. Actually, I would love somebody who would say, that I've never experienced that, and maybe this is a learning opportunity. I would like to learn that. The problem with us, we've been taught that interview is you have to get, it's an educational system. You have to get 100%. That then you pass. No, interviewing, I'm actually seeing your body language, the chemistry, the fit, the culture. I don't care that you had all the questions right, because you could have memorized them, right? And you could You could be a very good talker. It's how you. So for me, if you tell me you don't know, I actually respect somebody who doesn't know, and the fact that they want to learn. I'll respect that person more than somebody who's morphing. And the worst people that I hated are those that I can even tell they're making up the answers they're going. like, because I do this for a living. I can tell that you're making it up as you're going. So that frustrates me even more. So I'm just like, no.
There's something I've noticed about CEOs, at least most of them in Zambia, the ones that I know or have come across their profiles. They go and do the MBA in the UK or outside. I don't know, Heriot Watt, Manchester Business School. Does it mean that me who has an MBA from UNZA will never be a CEO?
No.
Not that never, okay, but does it mean if I go there and, MBA Manchester, Edinburgh, Heriot Watt, then this guy with MBA CBU or Unilas?
But so for me, it comes back again to what we're saying. MBA, Heriot Watt, whatever. The question I have is, what are the skills that you're bringing? And there's some jobs that I actually want somebody who's got a network locally that you educated somewhere else tells me that you probably don't have the networks that I'm looking for, right? So it doesn't mean that just people... I think most of us think of having those MBAs because we want to have an added advantage or you want to experience something else, right? But not all of us would have that added advantage. I tell people, University of Zambia degree, it was my first degree that landed me into Nigeria. I didn't have even a master's at that time. But it's the skills that I have. Because people are looking for, what is it that you can give us now with what you've learned? So there's this whole craze about doctor now, like doctor, and I was telling somebody, the craze goes because at the end of the day, I want a CEO who's able to deliver and they can demonstrate to me that they've delivered. I don't want a CEO who just speaks English. They can demonstrate to me that they can deliver. And at that level, it might be somebody who went to Mulungushi University and masters at CBU. And they can demonstrate that they can deliver. And the organization will thrive.
Do you think that most people in Zambia are obsessed with education over skills?
I'll say yes. It's because that's the only differentiator that we know. We've never known any other differentiation around how do I pick Eve over Grace. The only differentiator we know is education, right? But now we're becoming more and more aware the fact that education will just get you around the table to discuss. But as I'm asking questions, I'm looking for skills. There are countries where you find, and that I never understood it until I started working in the diaspora. I never understood and would even be whispering a CEO who didn't have a degree. Like, it didn't make sense, right? But I've now understood in some countries, they don't go the degree route. They go the skills route, where they are now being qualified, and then they take all these certificates and qualifications, and they've got institutes that will now qualify it into a degree. So for us, it's because that's the exposure that we've had. So I tell people, because that's the exposure that we've all had, you won't just go against the grain and say, oh, my child won't have a degree, they'll just have skills. Because remember, the exposure hasn't reached that level. But what I tell people is the over and above of that education should be skills. You need to know how to do things. And skills are, like nowadays, you go on, I was on Instagram, take yourself for 6 weeks away from Instagram and learn these AI tools and you'll come back different. It looks funny, right? It looks like AI. But I can't remember that in the last 1 year, I've used ChatGPT for most things that I do. Most things. I'm starting a presentation, I'll ask ChatGPT, then I'll refine it with data, right? So there are tools that can help us. Udemy has got a lot of courses that you can learn, pick up skills that you can enhance your job. But most of us, we use social media, YouTube, to just laugh at things. other people are using it for skills development. Skills development.
Social media and Zambia, no, people, don't be too serious. We're here to relax.
But that's the thing. So, and that differentiates people, right? So you've got the same, I normally tell my daughter, I'm like, you've got the same 2 bundles with somebody. The other person will choose to go and twerk on TikTok. You can choose to use those 2 bundles to learn how to code.
Yeah.
You can choose to use those 2 bundles to learn how to coach. So most of the times, the thing that differentiates you, because I can't take away what you know. And that's the thing. So we need to learn that learning is continuous. I can't take away the skill that you've learned. So in my mind, the question I usually ask somebody is, what are you learning that you know that I can wake you up? You can wake me up anytime. I can tell you about HR, I can tell you about marketing, I can tell you about finance, I can tell you about technical. Again, even the other day, somebody was coming to put internet at my house because I've worked in a telco. I'm asking him questions. I think I mean, he's young, so he probably doesn't know that I've worked in the company before. And he's telling me, I'm like, no, call your engineer. Because I want, you can't take away the fact that I understand how they lay cable in a telco. It's a skill that I've learned, right? You wake me up at night, I'll talk to you about that. So skills are important because those are things that nobody can take away from you. And those are the key differentiators. So if there's anything that I would say today is decide what skills you're earning this year. If you want the year to be somewhere where people recognize you differently.
All right. Still on the subject of education. When I'm doing a combination for an undergraduate and master's, what should guide what master's I should do? A degree in HR, is it enough? I'm going to get master's in HR for what? There are some people, they do a degree in health, they go and do a master's in marketing. Okay? Maybe the master's is for what? Like, what does master's even mean? Are you just doing masters for doing masters? I have a degree in business administration. I go and get an MBA. What does it change? Others also feel frustrated because they employed me at a degree. Now I have a master's. They should pay me more. I should be promoted. And so you find people are educated and they're getting frustrated because ever since I got a master's, nothing has changed. Why are you even going to get a master's in the first place?
So so this is my job, right? So I get somebody who is hired to do a job. Then they go and get a master's and they expect an increment. The question I ask them is, has the job changed? Because I don't pay you for your qualification. I pay you for what this job produces, right? That's why you're employed to do this job. So your package or pay only changes when this job expands or you change altogether. Now you're asking a question about masters and degrees. The thing about a master's, and the word is in there, you're mastering something. So I'll give you a story that happened to me when I left Zamtel and I went to work in the mines. The mines are obsessed with MBAs and because that's the way they define their notch system. That's the way they define growth. So I remember talking to my boss at the time, and I had an MSc. So I had the bachelor's from UNZA. Then I went and I did an MSc, and an MSc is a Master of Science for something. So I did coaching and consulting for change. That was what my MSc was. And in my mind, I wanted to do organizational transformation. So that makes sense. And it's Oxford, it's HEC, it's a good combination. But I went to the mines. I remember sitting down with my boss, and they were like, if you want to grow in this mine and want to go to other mines, you need an MBA. And I'm like, why? He says, because an MBA takes you into the business. The modules in an MBA will take finance, HR, marketing. You know, those modules are like broad. Why? They make you understand how a business system works. So when I did the MSc, I was still in the same bucket. I was still in the same boat. I'm just doing HR and I'm understanding how HR. And if I wanted to now be a lecturer in HR or maybe consulting in HR, that is fine. But if you want to be a business leader, That's where you do this master's that has got a broad range of subjects. And I tell people, look at the subjects that are in the master's. Don't just take a master's because it's a master's. What are the subjects that are there? Because you need to answer for yourself whether this is the right master's for you or not. Because I want to be a CEO, for instance, I'm going to do a master's that I've got all these ranges because I want to understand how marketing works. I want to understand how finance works. I want to understand how human resource works. So they're giving you subjects that you would have in an organization that you have at least a broad understanding for, so that when you're in the boardroom, you can speak to all these things. So people don't understand that when selecting the masters, you need to also think about what is it that you want the masters for? What is it that it should answer for you? Right now, there's this craze for doctorates or PhDs. So when I was now deciding which one I should do, again, I went back and I said, do I want a PhD or do I want a doctorate? Okay, what subjects do they have? What question is it answering for me? If it's a PhD, just to know, now go and discover a new way of talent, I don't want that. I don't want to be called doctor because I'm not, unless I want to lecture, why am I doing that? It's just another sort of noise. Or maybe I'm obsessed with called doctor. But if it's a DBA, again, go through the subjects. What subjects do they have? What am I learning in those subjects? At the end of the day, yes, I'm going to be called a doctor, but what subjects do I have? Yeah.
Yeah, I think also for me, because I'm doing PR. My degree is in marketing. I decided to go and do an MBA because someone told me PR people can become CEO. And it's true. I had the same conversation with the president for the Zambia Institute of Public Relations. PR people don't become CEO. I've never seen a PR person know the CEO is around just acting CEO. It never happens. So that's why I was like,
So you went and did an MBA. So now you're doing breast.
Yes, exactly. So I was like, overall, the business is good. Now that we're talking about business, we had a conversation earlier around, you having this passion around business and growing businesses. How do people who are in employment manage and balance business?
So I've always, from the university days, like I told you, I was that one person who packed my bags and came to Lusaka, and that was it. So I've always had business. I've always had a side gig from university. University, I used to go and wash clothes and come and sell to my friends from Salaola and stuff like that. So the way most people in Zambia are built, your salary alone can't sustain you. And I tell HR people this all the time. They want to kill me for it. I'm like, people who do side hustles, for me, makes me understand that this person has got other interests. It's not like if they're stealing time from the organization and they're doing something that is in direct conflict, maybe that's a problem. But I feel that most of us would do something else, right? The thing that I tell people is, when you're doing a side hustle, understand that it shouldn't take away from your main job. It's like there's that term, the goose that lay the eggs. You have to understand which is the goose that's laying my eggs in my home. People always ask me, but why do you work? I'm like, for me, work lays the eggs. That consistent income lays the eggs, right? So I make side hustles be things that don't take away time from me. So I'm like farming. I'm doing something that takes away my weekend, or I'm doing something that is passive income, or I'm doing something that I can employ other people to do and I can supervise on the side. So you just need to understand that what is it that is a goose that lays the egg? Two, why are you doing that side hustle? There are people who do side hustles because they want to build enough capital to leave this work and go and work there. There's a different way of doing it. There are those people who just do side hustle because my salary doesn't pay everything. So maybe I've got a kiosk that sells something. The question I always ask is, why are you doing the side hustle? That's the first question. The second question that I ask is, in your side hustleness, how do you balance all the things that are running around you? I think everybody who's listened to me talk, I tell people that I'm notorious for not going, and I'm glad I'm in Zambia, so I can talk about this. There's a tradition of every weekend when I was in Zambia, when I was working here, every weekend there was somebody's kitchen party. Somebody's child has got a kitchen party, somebody's child is doing this, somebody's chambelangan. Every weekend is taken away. But for me, who had a vibrant farm, that I had 20 workers that needed to be paid, I didn't have that. So I knew that it took away that socializing. I would go to the place, give them the present, bye, but I'm hustling somewhere else because that business, I can only do it on the weekend. So you would have to sacrifice something if you want to do it well. Otherwise, either your job is failing or your business is failing. Or you're being caught out all the time around, oh, you're not here, So don't steal time from your business, from your work. Make sure that you balance them well.
Okay. And once you go full-time into the business, how do you grow that? We're talking earlier about generational businesses.
So I coach most people. So I'm very fascinated about businesses that are family owned. I get so fascinated by them. And I coach people that go into now full-time. They were started hustling, now it goes into full-time. And I've found there's some things that we normally don't. If you're a bad employee, you're going to be bad at your business. It is just a given. Because the same way you're a bad employee, you won't dedicate time in you still, because remember we talked about habits. So you've built the habits. So when I coach people, I ask them around systems. Do they have a system for this business? So most of us do these side hustles. There's no system. You don't know whether the side hustle is making money or it's your salary. I've been there before where I'm never broke. There's always money somewhere. And you're thinking your business is doing well. It's because there's a salary that's substituting your down trenches, right? So when you're starting a business, when you're now wanting to shift totally, be able to start paying yourself from that business. And let the business pay you a salary. At least pay you something that you know that it's consistent. Because if you jump ship, those are the people that 3 months down the line, they're calling Eve to say they made a mistake because they didn't think about it properly. So systems are important. Secondly is be very sure that that business has grown to the point that it can carry your weight. Because your bills are not changing, that you've stopped work. The bills are there. They will be there. So can this business pay now, including you in the business? Third thing that I've found, and my nephew has taught me this all the time, Zambians, we've got bad record keeping. So the business has got no finance, no accountant, no finance, no nothing. Then you come in the morning, you're just like, pasakoni 5 pin. Bad record keeping. So that system should have designation. Do you have and I'm not saying hire the finance accountant full time. Maybe it's a part-time person who just comes and looks at your books because they'll be able to tell you that you're doing well. But like I tell you, I'm fascinated about generational wealth built businesses, and I struggle to find those in Zambia. I struggle. They're there, then they just disappear, and you're like, where did they go? It's because the Indian Zambians do well. And I've got friends who are Indian Zambians who pass it on well, and the kids build on it. But most of us don't know how to make our kids build on it. So we'll build this thing, and our kids can't build on it because our kids don't know what we're building. So that's what I'm now fascinated to say. How can we teach Zambians who leave work, whether they've now are about to retire or they've retired early or they've already retired and they've got a business, how do we teach them to have systems that their kids can come and work in and they can build on it? Yeah.
I think the issue you mentioned about generational businesses, it also goes back to what you mentioned about education. We're so obsessed with education. In Zambia, a kid knocks off from school 13 hours. He goes to the father's shop. What are you doing here? Go home. Go and study. So when is he going to learn about the business? But our friends are Indians. You find, 2-3 hours at the shop he goes.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. I was like, you go to Zikas those days. You find these Indians doing accounting. I don't know why they liked accounts.
Yes. And they will do it at night.
Yes, they do accounts. But you never go for a job interview and find on the queue there's an Indian.
No.
Where do they go? Back to those same shops.
Yes.
But us here, you go and do a master's at UNZA, go and work in your father's shop doing groceries. No, swatchtik. Because in Zambia, I think of this culture of you must have a white collar job. That is what. No, I didn't take you to Chengeo to come and do business in Kamwala. You get the point. But anyway.
But I think it's changing. So I find most of my age mates who are having kids, right? And most of the ones that tell me to coach their kids, I find they want me to coach their kids on how they will take this business forward or how they will take this enterprise forward, So it's changing. It's just that maybe the business is not big enough and we want our kids to come in when it's settled. But what tells you that the kids can only come in when it's settled? Like right now, my daughter has just finished her honors. She's taking, I don't know whether it's going to be a year or 6 months. All the things that I do, I've told the chick, you are the manager now. You know how I run, you know what I do. So now, Airbnbs, you're the one who's going to run them. Or this business, you're the one who's going to run it. And I need to trust that I've put enough, and I'm not saying that I will abrogate it and she will do it, but things like books, understanding what's happening, calling the workers, going to the farm and seeing, she should be able to do that. So I find that I think it's changing, but we're not changing at a point, at a rapid point that our friends, the Indians, have reached. So I'm willing to also just learn from the Indians. Maybe there's a model that they have that we haven't understood. Mm-hmm. But to build Zambia, to be honest with you, there are no jobs, and I'm going to say this boldly, there is not enough jobs that can carry all these university students that are coming out. Not enough jobs. We've got to teach these kids to start hustling. There's some people who won't find a job. Maybe the first 3 years after university, there is no company that can take them in. What can they do to earn a living? Those are the kids that you find they are smoking now. They are drinking heavily because they don't have purposeful things that they can do. And unfortunately, our educational systems don't teach us how to be entrepreneurial. So for us who used to go to Saraola, pick up the clothes, wash them, come and thrift, those days you iron, these kids don't know how to do that. So for the 3 years that you don't have work, what would you do? So what would the child do? That's when they get into these vices. And the problem is the new rich. You people who are new rich here are the most horrible parents because we overcompensate for our kids. Yeah. I call the new rich these people, us who walked, now we can have 3 cars outside. The child doesn't know how to speak our local language, drives even though they don't know how to buy petrol. That's a new rich syndrome. It's going to kill our kids. Because our kids are now babied to the point that they don't take accountability. You find a kid has finished university and there are still people washing his clothes. Like, come on. Can you just figure it out? So the problem is us, the new rich. And how do we change our mindsets as parents? And most times we come to think about it when it's too late. So parents who tell me to coach their kids, it's actually too late.
Yeah, for most of them, actually. Yeah. The thing you mentioned about kids and school is, there are some parents who have a kid who's good at selling, but is struggling with math. A Zambian parent to find him a coach for mathematics, but not nature is selling. Because we are so convinced he must pass at school, but not also knowing the other bit of it. Yeah. But then also you mentioned that you got businesses here in Zambia. How do you do remote management?
Because good managers. Hire good people. And partner.
In Zambia, even just those in the diaspora, just build a house.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. So how do you then, successfully manage a business when you're not in the country?
So I spend time to partner with people. So I rarely have a business that I'm 100% owned. I always partner with somebody who's local, that would be on the ground and, would foresee things. If it's not like that, I make sure that I hire a good manager if I don't have that partnership. But if you're in the diaspora, remote business most times fails. Why? Because I can tell you, I'm here, but I'm not there. So partnerships are good. Partner with those people that are passionate about the business, and know what they bring. Maybe they just bring stability by being local, or because they are full-time and you're doing something else, and make sure you pay them well. Pay the people that work for you well. They'll stick with you. I mean, I closed one business that was the biggest business that I've had. When we moved to South Africa, we had big farms. We had 2 farms thriving. We were one of the biggest pig suppliers, and we were taking eggs to the border. I mean, it was like a thriving business. It was paying me more than my job was paying me. But the moment we got to South Africa, we realized very quickly, even when we had people that we had worked with for a long time, things just didn't work. Why? Because we didn't have people that would manage it I think the business had grown to now stopping being a Kantemba to being an SMME, and we're still operating as a Kantemba. We're still calling Mwapangazingatiro and didn't have systems that I talked about. So we had to close it down, shut it down, and better it's shut down than the money that we were losing.
Okay.
So it's hard, yeah.
So that's a business you shut down, not because it was failing, but because of, what you mentioned. But there's some people who you go into something, it's not working, but you just keep, no, I can't stop this. People look at me, let me just keep pushing, and you just, feeding a dead horse. How do you know when it's time to shut it down? Both if it's a job or if it's a business.
So I've shut down stuff, right? And when I start something, I'm passionate. When I started Life magazine, I was the only person who had a gloss magazine in Zambia. There was no gloss magazine in Shoprite, you would have True Love and whatnot. Then the internet came. Then I saw the sales were down. I was fine to shut it down. And I'm like, apologize, guys, sorry, I'm shutting it down. And I shut it down and I move on. Because I think, for me, I'm very clear, why am I in this business? I'm not in the business for people to see that I'm in the business. Actually, most of my businesses, people don't even know that I'm behind those businesses. I'm in the business to make money, to be profitable. So the moment it starts draining me and it's not making money, better I pay off the workers and I move on. Same as a job. There are some jobs that you see that it's not working for you. It's making you sick. It's making you drained. Sometimes take a step back. But I think we are always wanting to have people look at us a certain way, that we do it. But what I can tell you is people are not looking at you. People think we sit there and we're thinking, hey, what is Eve doing now? They can do that maybe the day you pop. But people don't have time to be looking at you and thinking about your businesses. So if it's not working, shut it down and move on. But you need to learn when to. So some people, so there are extremes, right? There are some people who, the smallest of things, they shut it down, they go to something else. Or they have got so many things that they're trying at the same time. But there's some people who want to stay in it when it's dead. So know when this thing is dead and move on. And it comes to you knowing, why are you in that business? What's that business supposed to achieve for you? Is it achieving? Maybe year one, try. Year two, by the end of year two, make a decision. Okay. Whether you should go on or shut it down.
Okay. We're almost done. I want to go back a bit to the career bit. In organizations, there are what they call quiet quitters. So they're there,
those are dangerous. Those are dangerous.
How do you manage those?
So you can't manage them from HR. I tell people, if an organization has got 500 people, there is no way Eve as an HR person will know who's quietly quit. The person who will know who's quietly quit is the line manager. So what I am obsessed with is management development, like developing your managers. And that's why we talked about engagement at the beginning. A manager will have like 6 people that they are managing. If there's a quiet quitter, a good manager will know within 6 months that this person has withdrawn or they're now just looking for jobs. And most times you can talk to those quiet quitters to find out what's making them be at that point. And you find it's things that are frustrating them that you can resolve and bring them back. The problem with most of us is when somebody has quietly quit, we straight away, put him on PIP and let him be going. That's, again, a manager who's transactional. I like to speak to people and find out what's going on. What is it that is making them withdraw? What is it that's making them disengage? What is it that's making them frustrated? Most times you find it's things that the organization can resolve. It's things that the organization can resolve. But because the manager left it for a long time, by the time it's coming to HR, this person is long gone. So when I worked in Zen, my CEO then, David Venn, used to say, if there is nobody who starts off from their home saying, today I'm going to play. Every person here has started off from home saying, I'm going to work. Our jobs is to make work exciting. If work is not exciting for them, they'll withdraw. And I used to think, oh God, this guy. He's just like our jobs. Our key jobs is to make work exciting and to make work impactful for them. If we can do those two things, and that's why you find Celtel Zen was like buzzing at the time, because we made sure that work was exciting. Now, if your work is not exciting, I will quietly, even me, I can quietly quit. I'll be coming there for a salary. And unfortunately, in our organization, people are there for a salary.
How do you resurrect someone? Like, bring them back to, like they just interviewed for the job yesterday?
So for me, it's what is making them frustrated? What is the things that are making them frustrated are the things that you go for. So if you are quietly quitting, if you really think about the people that quietly quit, they promoted somebody over me who I'm teaching the job. I hear that all the time. They had somebody from outside who I'm teaching the job. Why? There are organizations that are obsessed with every time there's a vacancy, they are going outside. But they are not training the people within to be able to take those jobs. Then the person comes in, and then I should start teaching you the job. I'm quietly quitting. That's one. Two, people quietly quit because we look at people as not growing. And I'm glad this is a growth podcast. We look at people as not growing. We look at people where we found them. So my very good friend Jusab tells me, if you're in Celtel, you would always look at me from where you found me. And that's the nature of a human being. If I found you in this job, I'll always think you are there, but you're growing. I can only know how you're growing if I interact with you. I can't know sitting from my office. So if I interact with you, I'll know, actually you went to this course. Actually you're interested in this. Actually you're interested in that. But most of us, we think people are stagnant. Where we found them is where they are. So when there's a vacancy that comes, we are like, nimzi voucher. That guy, there's nothing that guy knows. But the person has grown. So it's your job to make sure, and that's what makes good HR people good, is make sure you're learning about people's adventures, people's exposures, people's strengths, things that are changing about them. Because you find you had me in a call center, but I've grown to a point where now I can lead a whole team. But if you're going to look at me that, when I found this person, he was in the call center, 5 years has passed. 5 years is a long time for somebody to change. So most times to resurrect people, you need to have conversations with people.
I had a lecturer who was at Zain Celtel. He would talk about David Venn. He's like, that was the CEO. That was... mfana kuipa CEO manga David Venn. He would come so valuana vintu abwela kujitupa weekend na bana wake. Sort it out and end. And I was like, anyway, we lack leaders like that. But also what you said is true, especially for people who you were together, they leave and then they come back.
Yeah.
So when I left you at the call center, I've come back. You are not the call center, but me, I'm just saying, all you can do is call center stuff, and those ones are difficult for them to, yeah. But then also, you, I won't say sound like. I know you're very well read. What books would you recommend people would read?
Sure. So I talked about Atomic Habits. It's one book that I would recommend. If you are interested in money, Psychology of Money is another book. I'm thinking about books that I'm the 5 a.m. Club. If you're serious about your career, 5 a.m. Club. Awakening, my book. If you're serious about growth this year, make sure you read The Awakening. There's nothing that I talk about that I haven't put in that book. I'll put Awakening there. And then the 5th book that maybe this is more, I don't know how to put it. I think most people read books that are, okay, let me not say a book. Let me say read books that are self-help, but also read books that don't have anything to do with what you're doing. Don't have anything to do with your job and whatever. So I like to read fiction sometimes, like just to open up my mind. So read, get yourself these self-help books that I've talked about, but also go and get a book that has just got nothing to do with what you're doing, just to open up your brain, because you get lost. In those days, we used to read Mills and Boons. These days, I love to read sci-fi books. Just I like how people think. I'm curious about that. Yeah.
Okay. And given where you are in your career now, when you look back, what do you wish someone told you at the beginning of your career? Or what do you wish they warned you about, or just as advice that they gave you?
That not everybody is good. Not everybody wants you to succeed. I was very naive. For me, wherever I work, I used to make like, those are my friends. I'll know they are people, and I'll think they are like, we are like going the same direction. I think it took me time to understand that people can sabotage you, and you don't know. The first lesson I learned was actually in Nigeria. One day I was doing interviews, and I was young. I was like 30, 31, 32, and I'm leading this big HR department, and I'm trying to hire a CA4. I do an assessment, so they had a written assessment. I put the documents in the room. I go to the bathroom, I come back, and the documents have disappeared. And these are documents for assessment. I can't find them. I'm thinking, and where you start now looking under the table and you're thinking, but the documents were here. Somebody just wanted to sabotage me. And I remember going to the CEO's office. I'm like, how do I tell my CEO that these are CFOs that have written assessment that I've lost the papers? And he laughed. He says, oh, they never taught you. And he says, you know what you do tomorrow? Just chin up, call all those people, change the questions, and let them come and write. They're looking for jobs. They'll come and write the exam again. And that's when I learned, I'm just like, oh, people just want you to fail. There's some people that, so it's not everybody who's looting for you. It's not everybody who's there to make you succeed. So just be emotionally aware that I'm here for a job. Some people, I would treat them as colleagues, but they're not my friends. And I had a tendency to think my colleagues are my friends, and my friends are my colleagues. And even my friends now is from maybe the Zen time, because that's the way we worked. We were all young, so everybody was friendly with everybody. But now I've learned with time that you need to put those boundaries. So work is work and home is home. So that's one thing. The second thing, if I'll think about what I wish I knew, is the fact that a leader is, you differentiate a leader by what they've invested themselves in growth. I think in the beginning, my growth when I started off was like rapid. Then I started to coast. I started to be comfortable, you're costing and all that. It took me a bit, so you are like this, and then it took me a bit, when I plateaued to get back into that form, it took a bit more time. So now I'm deliberate that every month I'm reading one book just to learn, so that I'm fresh in my mind. So I wish somebody told me that actually this career that you've taken, learning is a consistent thing that you can never stop. When you start to cost, you think people don't notice it. Everybody around you is noticing it. They're just operating on experience. And as a leader, you can't operate on experience, because experience gets you into the room. You've got to be curious.
Okay, so you're also in that famous former Zain WhatsApp group?
Yes. All of us are there.
Hey, yeah.
No, but it's grown now that I don't know most of the people there. I'm just like, but you kind of like the ones that each other. You even find that all of us are doing businesses and they're working, and it's because of the way we were young. So each one, which all of us were like hustlers.
Okay.
So I put together a group of hustlers. It's my job, my fort. Put together a group of hustlers.
What's your proudest accomplishment over your career?
Over my career, proudest. There are quite a number, but you want one. Going to Nigeria and succeeding there. Going as an expert in Nigeria, where 32, everybody that reports into you is either a master's or a PhD level person. including your PA has got a master's and you don't have it, and succeeding there. I think that's those 5-6 years are the proudest years of my life. I really enjoyed working in Nigeria because it pushes you. Those guys, they push you. The same way you see them on the movies, they'll push you. Push you to excellence, push you to thinking different, push you to being street smart. So going in Nigeria and succeeding was my proudest career moment, yeah.
Would you say the same about South Africans?
South Africans are different. South Africans, so I've worked in different markets. So South Africans, for me, are very South Africans know their jobs. They know what excellence looks like. You know, like it's about excellence, exceptionalism, and stuff like that. So they push you to be excellent at what you're doing, and for them they've got systems that work and all that. Nigeria is like you're flying a plane, but you're putting the wheel. You're also fixing. So yeah, so the energy is different. South Africa is you're debonair, you're corporate, you're that, and we don't even wear jackets and whatnot. So the corporateness is like you're in sneakers and all that. Things are like a bit relaxed, but very, very excellent. Nigeria is like you are constantly running, but you are running with energy, and the energy is fueled every week. There's no place where you feel. So we worked so hard in Nigeria, but weekend we played so hard as well. So yeah.
Okay. My final question. What are 5 things you'd give to young people as advice?
5. Finance. Learn about money. Don't think money just appears. The most mistakes that people make is because they didn't learn about money. So we just think, budget, but there's a place where you have a lot of money, but if you don't treat money well, you lose it. So that's one. Finance is important. Secondly, learn about yourself. So you are a brand. What are the things I tell young people? What do you like and what don't you like? And learn to walk in that truth. I don't like this, so I won't do it. I like this, so I'll do it. So learn about yourself. Learn about what makes you tick. Learn about what environment makes you thrive. That's 2. 3, God for me is center. I've never been at a place where there are times in careers or in life you hit your all-time low. Like low, or you've lost something that you hit your all-time low and you want to kill yourself. The times that are important is the God, like at that time. That's the only, you can't explain it, so God is important. And I should actually have put this as first, but anyway, that's the way I'm thinking right now. God is important. 3rd one is family, and I'll match family and friends. For me, growing up, family has always been a cornerstone. But now my family has expanded to my friends as well. So these people are your ride or die. You have to have your ride or die people, like people that will be with you in the trenches and be with you on the mountain. So find people like that will vouch for you, be there for you, ride or die with you. Last one, I'm trying to think what is important for me that I've learned with time. Be so deliberate about protecting your name. That's the only thing you have. So deliberate. Like in that way, if they say if Banda did XYZ, so we should be able to say, because I've built a name and I've protected my name. If they say if Banda was seen here, you'll be able to say, no, she's the same person. And I think a good name is better than anything that you can accumulate that is material. So be very deliberate about protecting your name.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that you do coaching. Is it like anyone can just call and say, no, I saw you on the podcast, I want you to coach me?
No, so I opened... So I open up and people are like, so this week my phone is constantly ringing. I open up platforms where people can come into a place where it's group coaching. So I start with group coaching at the beginning. So maybe 20 people in a class. Once you finish that, then I'll coach maybe 2-3 people from that, because it's a lot taxing. I don't coach more than 5 people at a go because I can't manage it. So I only choose 5 from those group classes. Yeah.
Okay. So someone who's interested, how do they then?
On my social media, there's always a link or whatever when I've got group classes. Otherwise, I'll be coaching for life.
So it's Eve Banda on LinkedIn.
Eve Banda on LinkedIn, Eve Banda on Instagram, Eve Banda Inc. on Facebook. Yeah, those ones.
You're not on YouTube yet?
No, not on YouTube yet. So it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. It's been very insightful.
Thank you,
for me, I feel like there's some...
I felt like I was in an interview as well. Like I was a job interview.
No, it was a good conversation. Like I said, setting the tone for the year. And I feel like you are a whole wealth of knowledge on a lot of things. I think people like you should come back to Zambia so that we grow our country.
Maybe. But I'm here every month. I tell people every month I dedicate a week to being around here, just for me not to lose the culture, not to lose the... Yeah.
No, I mean like actively working to grow the country, Because I feel like we need a lot of... Like the way you talk about HR, I've never heard anyone explain HR like that. For me, HR is just, we are here for change management. We're here for recruitment, disciplinary issues. That's what HR is known for the most part.
No.
And I don't think most HR people even bother with going to MBA in the business and what's happening there. And
the
what's
business,
happening.
Yeah.
They really want to, because if not, then they'll go and lecture HR.
Yeah, but that's transactional HR. HR is a lot. And people ask me like, oh, so you're in HR, but they leave you to act. And like what you said about PR can't act. I beg to disagree. PR can be a CEO.
I've never seen.
No. Yeah, maybe you'll be the first one.
There's a CEO I know from a bank. He was PR, corporate affairs.
Yeah.
He had to go and do the business. Retail.
Yes, and
then he became CEO.
Yeah.
Not that of all the directors, they pick the director communication.
Yeah.
No. And also funny thing is, we're having some conversation, most companies don't have a director communication.
Yes, so have like
PR is not
a manager.
At director level,
Yeah.
it's a manager or head level, not like an actual, So that just shows that, it's good for the time, but at some point you have to dip.
Yeah.
And, go into it. But thank you so much. And I wish
you
you a safe flight back home.
Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you so much for your support that you give to the podcast. We don't take it for granted. If you feel that the content on the podcast is worth it, it's valuable, that you learn something, we are asking you to support us even further with your financial contribution. That way, you help us to meet our costs and we keep the lights on and we make sure that the podcast is always available to you. You can do so by sending a contribution to any of the numbers that are showing right below. We thank you for supporting the Growth Podcast.